In today's video, we are going to see the 4 different types of conditional structures in English. We will start with zero conditional. We use zero conditional to talk about things that almost always happen. They are general truths. They can be habits, scientific facts, general truths, instructions, and rules. If you do one thing, then almost always the other thing happens too. The structure is present simple plus present simple. For example, if you heat water, it boils. In negative, it would be, if you don't heat water, it doesn't boil. And in question form, it would be, if you heat water, does it boil? Let's see more examples. If you eat too much, you get fat. If you touch fire, your skin burns. If people don't eat, they die. And if I drink, I don't drive. So we use it for things that almost always happen if we do another thing. First conditional. We use first conditional to talk about consequences, possible situations or actions in the future and their consequences. The structure is present simple plus will and base form. Base form is the infinitive but without the to. For example, the verb to be without the to is be. Will be. If I study, I will pass the exam. In all conditional sentences, you can change the order of the structure. So you can put the will and the base form first, and in the second part of the sentence, if and present simple. I will pass the exam if I study. In negative, it is, if I don't study, I won't pass the exam. And in question form, it is, if I study, will I pass the exam? You can also change the order of the structure in sentences that are negative and questions. For example, will I pass the exam if I study? Now let's see some examples. If I study today, I will pass the exam. If it is sunny tomorrow, we will go to the park. If I see my friend, I will talk to him. If it rains, I won't play football. If it rains, will we play football? So you can see that the first conditional is used for consequences. Second conditional. We use the second conditional to talk about unreal or imagined situations. We use past simple and would with the base form of the verb. If I won the lottery, I would buy a mansion. You can also change the order. You could say, I would buy a mansion if I won the lottery. In negative, it would be, if you didn't win the lottery, you wouldn't buy a mansion. And in question form, it would be, if you won the lottery, would you buy a mansion? Now let's see some other examples. If I had a lot of money, I would buy a Ferrari. If we lived in Miami, we would surf. If I were a doctor, I would have a lot of patients. If she won the lottery, she would buy a big house. If I were you, I would study more. I have put the words were in a different color because in conditional sentences, we don't use the word was. We have to use the word were, even though it is I. Normally, in English, you would say I was, like yesterday I was happy. But you can never use the word was in conditional sentences. People use it, but it's not grammatically correct. As you can see, we use the second conditional to talk about things that we are imagining and are not real. When we say, if we lived in Miami, we don't live in Miami. Or, if she won the lottery, but she didn't win the lottery. You are imagining it. As we can't use the word was, if I were a doctor, I would have a lot of patients is the correct way of writing it. You can't say if I was a doctor. And if I were you, I would study more is the correct option, not if I was you. Third conditional. We use the third conditional to talk about imaginary results of situations in the past that didn't happen. I always say that this is like regrets or things that didn't happen but could have happened in the past. We used past perfect and would have plus the verb in third column or ed. It's important to remember that the have of the would have never changes. It never changes to has. If I had studied for the exam, I would have passed. It is an imaginary result of something in the past that didn't happen because I didn't study for the exam, so I didn't pass. But if I had studied, I would have passed. The negative is if you hadn't studied for the exam, you wouldn't have passed. And the question form is, if you had studied for the exam, would you have passed? Let's see some examples. If we had gone on holiday, we would have gone to Italy. If I had studied, I would have passed the exam. If you had been careful, you wouldn't have fallen. If she had bought a better computer, she wouldn't have had any problems. As you can see, they are results of things that didn't happen in the past. Now let's practice. You can write your answers in the comment section and I will correct them. With zero conditional, if I am bored, I. With the first conditional, if I don't learn English, I. If I work more hours tomorrow, I. With the second conditional, if I won $1 million, I. If I had enough time, I. And finally, with the third conditional, if I had slept more last night, I. Remember to send your answers and I will correct them. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you and I'll see you in my next video.